Well, we're done. I can tell we're done because I put a signature here. So, excuse me, I'm just chewing on a Tums here. I like this this shape of cutting into this block of blue, and even though it earlier had some sunshine hitting it, once I went to work in the water, and I knew I wanted to put a few slashes of light in the water and make this a little more interesting, then I had this little slash horizontal and these ones, and they kind of competed. I didn't really like that. If I'm going to have so many horizontal lines in the foreground at the bottom, in this case I didn't want to repeat just one little one up top. I wanted to keep things flowing up top. So I made it less important, darkened it. I still like it. I think it works well. I think it works better than it did before, actually. So there was that. We already talked about this. Yeah, and the foreground, I put a few sort of, what would they be called? I suppose diminishing fetch from the main lake or ocean. As we get closer to shore and into a bay, it becomes more gentle, and only a few of the wave tops have residual foam or are catching some light from the distant thunderheads or the distant clouds. So I put a few in. Once I had done that, this area became very boring because it was almost as though I had framed in an area. I sort of created a hole. This was interesting, but this was then boring, so I tried to vary the color a little bit in there as well. Or, vary the color, vary the hues, I suppose, more than anything. I put a little bit of well, actually that was mostly there before, a little bit of ultramarine blue to reflect a little bit of what was there. Sort of a subconscious thing if you're viewing the painting for the first time. Added a little more, sort of not hard-lined highlights on these trees, on some of them in certain areas, but took my my small knife here and just dabbed a few spots just to give them a little more strength, and actually on the trunks as well. So I guess what we'll do, I'll go through the colors now, and because this is not a forest full of individual bushes and individual tree trunks, I'm just going to have to talk about general areas rather than specific items for the most part. So this area consists of ultramarine blue, cobalt blue, touches of yellow ochre, touches of alizarin crimson, bits of raw umber now and then. I used raw umber to kill the chroma just a tad up here. Might have even used a bit of burnt sienna to tone it down. Coming into these distant clouds. This would be yellow ochre, alizarin crimson, cobalt blue, raw umber, and some of this darker subdued shadow on this one, and a couple of areas here, but with more white. Here I've gone more with cobalt blue and alizarin crimson and white, and a hint of raw umber, but there's a little more life in there. The purple is showing more as purple there. The whole set of distant clouds here really are comprised of white, yellow ochre, alizarin crimson, cobalt blue, raw umber, all in varying degrees. Coming to this closer set of clouds, I started to add more ultramarine blue and strayed a little bit away from cobalt blue as I went into these darker areas. I felt also that this band of cloud here, yesterday it was still very raw umber-y, very brown, and so I decided to take some of these hues and introduce them down here to help make this area, to give it some variety of color, some shots of grayish blue, but also to give it more of a feeling, more depth to it than what was there before. Now it kind of looks more like an area where, I certainly wouldn't want to be out there in a boat. Certainly not a small boat. Still quite stylized, so it's in tune with the rest of the painting, but I think it gave it a little bit of depth. It sculpted things a little bit. So these clouds, like this entire sort of intermediary plane is raw umber, a bit of ultramarine blue, a bit of cobalt blue here and there, white, bits of alizarin crimson, bits of yellow ochre. You know, you just go knife stroke by knife stroke to make your decisions when you're going into there. Or that's what I do. I have to because things are changing. Things evolve with every stroke you put on the painting. Things evolve. Anyway, I'm happy. I think that's quite an improvement in this area. This was fine. This is a little bit two-dimensional here. Not going to worry about it. It's on the edge of the canvas. No, it's fine. It's fine as far as I'm concerned. Excuse me. These trees are only cobalt blue and burnt sienna, hints of yellow ochre now and then, and white. I wanted to stay fairly blue because this would be a different blue than any other sort of greenish blue, or a different green than other greens in the water. Just barely, but it's enough. Trunks, burnt sienna and white in the highlighted areas. Otherwise it's burnt sienna, ultramarine, just a hint of ultramarine blue and white. The bedrock shore here, that's a lot of raw umber, really going back into these colors, but more raw umber. So there's raw umber, ultramarine blue, yellow ochre, white, alizarin crimson. Yeah, that's about it. As far as my blues that I've added to this mixture, I've pretty much stuck with ultramarine blue. So although, you know, the general tone of these rocks, or the general hues in these rocks, appear different than the sky, it's really the same palette as I've used in the sky, but different ratios of different colors within my knife strokes. And of course, this is softer. There are very few hard lines here. These are all hard lines. That helps to identify them as closer in the foreground and indeed as rock. The water. Back in the distance, I've gone with ultramarine blue, yellow ochre, and white. Here to here to here to here. You know, honestly, the bulk of the base is varying degrees of ultramarine blue, yellow ochre, and white. But I put a bit of raw umber, quite a bit of raw umber added to that mixture down here to start with. Then I went over it with ultramarine blue and yellow ochre. This is ultramarine blue with a hint of yellow ochre and a bit of white, keeping it bluer, and then warming it up by adding more yellow ochre into these areas, and yeah, as I said, quite a bit of ultramarine blue and just a few spots here and there to keep it interesting. And to help keep the sky and the water in tune with each other. Ultramarine blue, ultramarine blue. And the odd place I've put a couple of strokes of ultramarine blue, alizarin crimson, and raw umber. And I don't even know if you can see them on camera. Even me looking at it closely now, I'm going by memory as much as I'm going by seeing what I've got on the painting itself. Through the camera you may not see that, but just subtle variations in the water. The highlights, well, all of the highlights are ultramarine blue, yellow ochre, and white in varying degrees. A few almost straight shots of yellow ochre and white, almost. None of this approaches as high a value as this little spot here. But this is where I want the attention to be, most of it. Again, I mentioned it's dead center, it's fine. Because, and it's going to be dependent on different people's eyes, because they will see, you will see things differently than I do. But I see this as pulling the focal point, the focal area, to the left. This is really the vivid area of the painting. It's included in here, which is just left of center. This becomes secondary, although supportive to the rest of the painting, and in tune with the rest of the painting. I think that's it. If you have any questions or comments, well, you know where to leave them in the comments below. And I don't have any canvases or any panels at home right now, so I think I'm going to have to do some shopping before I start the next one. I don't know what I'm going to do for the next one. We shall see. But thanks for coming along on this painting as well, again, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye. I don't know why, but I always forget to do this. I think that you guys kind of like it if I do this, so I'm going to do a bit of a zoom in and pan the painting again now that it's done. So I said goodbye, and I hate goodbyes, but it's going to have to be a second goodbye after this one. So there's our sky. You know, you can see that. Sorry, I'm always pushing this zoom button the wrong way. But you can see there's a lot going on in the sky. And when you back up, you may not notice what's there. But if you were to simply blur your eyes and look at the sky, you'd probably see blue, you know, ish, and that would be it. Well, blue is not the color of the sky. It's multiple blues. Alright, let's just go on these clouds here. We'll zoom in again. I'm so bad at this. See, there's my couple of highlights close to center. So in some areas the paint is very thick, and in other areas you can still see the warp and weft of the canvas. You can still see the bite. I'll just hit the tree here for a moment so you can see the variety of color that's in there. That's why I don't like pre-mixing colors on my palette, because if you do that, every stroke you put on your canvas has been so mixed, it's almost dead in the water before it even hits the canvas. But if you lay it on the canvas and it's too strong, you can run your knife through it a second time and it will tone things down. But at least at that point you haven't gone too far, and you have the option of of allowing it to stand as a strong stroke, be it brush or knife. See, there's quite a bit of just the stained canvas showing through in spots. And that's okay. Nothing wrong with that. Okay. Okay. I'll just give you a quick shot of the entire painting. Alright, now goodbye, and we'll see you next time.